Citing ongoing terrorist attacks and regional tensions, Israel announced its plans to construct a barrier in the occupied Palestinian territory around the West Bank in late 2002, beginning construction soon after. In December of 2003, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution requesting an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice regarding the legal consequences of the construction of this wall. Is the construction of this wall legal under international law? If not, what are the legal consequences for those involved? Upon completion, the barrier will be over 400 miles long and at its maximum height will be over 25 feet. While some of the barrier will be a concrete wall, most of it will be a fenced barrier that is about 19 feet high. For a historical comparison, the barrier will be 4 times longer and at points 2 times taller than the Berlin Wall. Israel argues that the barrier is necessary for internal stability and the safety of their citizens. Israel would also argue that their barrier conforms with the Green Line that was established after the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. Opponents of the wall, including Palestine, would argue that the wall was not a tool for stability and safety, but rather a tool for Israel to expand its territory past previously agreed borders. This claim may be true, as contrary to the statements of the Israelis, 85% of the barrier lies within the West Bank. Opponents also claim that the barrier disregards the rights of the Palestinian people. In 2003, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan agreed, describing the wall as separating communities from health services, schools, water sources, and electricity sources. Both Israel and Palestine have made their arguments clear, but how does the ICJ decide on the legality of the barrier? First, the ICJ must decide whether the General Assembly was acting within its own authority when it requested the advisory opinion. The General Assembly was acting under its authority, as under Article 96 of the United Nations Charter, the General Assembly may request an advisory opinion from the Court on any legal question. The Court also must decide if there is a compelling reason why it should not exercise its jurisdiction to give an advisory opinion. Israel may argue that a fundamental principle of the Court is that a state is not obliged to submit its disputes to judicial settlement, but this is not a request for judicial settlement, but rather a request by the General Assembly for an advisory opinion under Article 65. Therefore, the ICJ has jurisdiction over the case. The Court must then decide which international laws apply. Laws that apply include the United Nations Charter, international humanitarian law, and human rights law. The ICJ must also consider the fact that the Palestinian people do not have an internationally recognized state, which raises questions about the applicability of international conventions such as the Hague Convention and the Fourth Geneva Convention. Should the Court find any breach of international law, it must next determine the legal consequences of that action. While advisory opinions are not legally binding, they do carry great legal weight and moral authority. The usual consequence for a state responsible for the breaching act is an obligation to stop that act immediately. Should the ICJ find the barrier to be in violation of international law, Israel would be expected to stop construction immediately. The ICJ gave an advisory opinion for this case in July of 2004. Therefore, any event past July 8th of 2004 will not be considered in the historical timeline for this advisory opinion.